Okay, I'm ready for the review of the ZTE Axon 7, but I have to also tell you that I am getting a little bit sick, so my brain could make me talk a little bit rubbish, but I also didn't want to leave you hanging any longer, since I know a lot of you have been waiting for this review for quite some time, but I also had to take a few more days with this phone just not to miss anything, because I know it's a very important phone for a lot of people considering to buy it, and I didn't want to miss something that could be crucial, so just keep that in mind, especially something like, for example, the specs, because some people have called me out that the specs were wrong, but actually I wrote 3140, now it's 3250. Some spec sites say this, some sites say the others. ADA64 for example tells me 3100, so I'm not quite 100% sure what it actually is, since the internet doesn't seem to think the same actually as well, so keep that in mind. But I will give you all the information that I have, and this could be the reason that this review will be a little bit longer, but like I said, I will cover everything that I can. First thing, don't really mind the color so much of the device, because it looks very different on my camera for some reason. White balance and everything is set, but for some reason the color still don't look wrong, because in actual reality the color of this gold version looks way nicer than it does here on the video, so sorry about that. But let's talk about the actual device in terms of compact feel, because as you can see here, compared to the Moto Z Play, it is a lot smaller and also narrower, and this is also a 5.5 inch. Of course it has a bigger battery, but after all I have to say it's a wonderful compact phone, really lies nice in the hand due to the curved back, and everything else is rounded off so nicely. The only thing there it's a little bit sharper is here at the USB Type-C, so if you have your finger sometimes here you will notice that, but that's a really minor thing. But it's also built very solid, very premium, so I absolutely love that. The fingerprint reader itself maybe not the fastest one, and you have to really put your finger precisely in the middle, and you can't just be a little bit sloppy, because then it will fail. But it's okay, it's not the fastest one, but it gets the job totally done. Also here the LEDs, the camera, here we have the headphone jack and the microphone, SIM card and SD card tray. On the bottom one microphone again, and the USB Type-C with the, in my opinion, pretty much perfectly placed buttons. I like that position a lot. The buttons also feel great. Volume rocker is placed well as well. We have a notification LED, and in my opinion we have also very nice small bezels, and actually the bottom and top chin are really nice as well. And a few people I know complain about the position here of those buttons. I like it, and you can reverse them, but personally I think it's great. They could have been maybe sometimes backlit. I usually don't like that as well actually, but it is something that I want to call it. A few people have a really big gripe with that. I don't know really why, but to bring this to an end, pretty much the nicest phablet. I would actually even say the nicest phablet that I've ever used in terms of in-hand feel. It feels so premium and so nice. Everything is, in my opinion, just done right. Okay, let's talk about the display. Quad HD, AMOLED, and 5.5 inches. And I would say this is pretty much one of the best displays in general that I've seen, because I've even compared this side by side with my Samsung Galaxy S7, and I think the white is actually even nicer calibrated. And the great thing here is, if we go into the settings for the display, we have, as we can see, a screen effect where we can set the color temperature control, and also colorful, because you can make it a lot more natural as you want to. Gorgeous is still a little bit less saturated than on a Samsung phone, but I think colorful is a really nice balance. And you can set it to cold and warm, but I think actually normal does an absolutely great job. The viewing angles are super stable, it is bright enough outdoors, and it is a really high quality Quad HD panel. So they didn't just make a sloppy just one for the specs, it is a really great one. Absolutely nicely calibrated, and everything is high quality, so I absolutely love this display, and especially the calibration. Now, what about the sound? It's totally fine enough, and as you have seen, you can't really block it. It's almost impossible. After all, the whole front is done with two speakers, and I think the quality, first of all, is really good, but it's also very loud, and it is pretty much one of the best speakers, especially since it's a very rich and full sound. Very loud, nicely balanced, not muffled or anything. We have bass, we have the mids and the clear highs. So speaker absolutely top notch, among at least the best free ones without any problem. Headphone jack, I think, and this is complaining on a crazy high level, is a little bit overrated, because I expected something on a level of an HTC 10 where it's still not. It is like amongst the top 5, something like that. but it's just not that great as I thought. And we have some Dolby Atmos software that I actually turned off because I thought the sound was just not true enough anymore, and it was way clearer without Dolby Atmos. But it is loud enough, not nearly as the HTC 10, and it sounds really good, but it's not what I heard it would be, at least not what I expected. So very, very good, but it's not what I expected it to be. Not saying that it's not fully satisfying, because it is. So let's talk about the performance here. Let me quickly, yes, and as you have seen, you have to precisely hit the fingerprint reader. Let's launch a few apps, and I can tell you here that things are done really nice because apps launch very fast. Actually they do, but as you can maybe already see here, this is one of my complaints, the animations are a little bit too much in my opinion, because if you can see, there is an unnecessary amount of long transition, and that makes the device maybe feel smoother and more consistent, but it feels slower to me because you have longer animations, and I did set them already to 0.5 in the settings. So this is something, as you are someone that wants a really snappy device. For example here, if I launch my gestures, okay, this usually works better. Let me quickly try this again. So you can see here, there is just a very long smooth animation, but it's not snappy or crazy fast. But therefore, one thing that I have to just point out to be really, really great is the actual scrolling, because this one is flawless, pretty much absolutely lag free, and on thanks to the AMOLED 60 frames per second smooth level. This is something that I just love to see because it's so nice and smooth, because some LCDs just feel a lot more blurry here and just not as great. So I have to say the experience in terms of scrolling is absolutely top. It's very responsive. And like I said, the only thing is that it's just not super snappy because of the longer animations. I don't think it's a performance issue, because the performance is absolutely spot on. But the longer animations, just keep those in mind. But the rest, really, really nice. You can make even fast flicks, works out just fine. And even Google Plus, which is a laggy lag app, works out just fine. And yeah, I know a lot of people will make some comments now about what they have seen in the stream, but it's something I can't do about it since it's spam. Now let's talk about the gaming performance. It's not as great due to the 1440p display. I think that taxes still, and I think the Snapdragon 820 can't deliver the best gaming performance on 1440p. So I'm not quite sure if it's possible, like on some 1440p devices, to scale it down to 1080p. Maybe you need an app for that, but after all, the gaming performance is still absolutely reliable. It's fast. There are some quite often minor slowdowns that don't really bother me too much, and the overall smooth average frame rates are still absolutely there, but there are especially 1080p devices that deliver here more. But that is such something to keep in mind. The rest is just absolutely fine, especially games like Modern Combat with my Bluetooth controller work better than I usually notice. So yeah, it's absolutely fine. I like the gaming performance, it's absolutely great overall still, but if you can kind of slow it down to 1080p or resolution it down, you will be even more so satisfied. Now, let's talk about the dead battery. And like I said, the size itself is a little bit of a mystery, but the great thing is 1 hour and 30 for a full charge, since it has quick charge and it is a bigger battery after all. That is quite good. And as you can see, 13% for 1 hour of YouTube, maybe not the best value, but it is in line what I get in terms of overall battery life, since I on a normal day got around 5 hours, so in mixed use. I would say on data only maybe 4, and on Wi-Fi you should get 6. But the one thing that I have to point out is the slightly fluctuating standby drain, because for the first days it was just fine overnight. It didn't really drain all that much, but especially the last 3 days I had quite some severe standby drain, like 13% in 4 or 5 hours, and once I used the device for a little bit longer, it was still like 1% an hour. So that's a little bit unreliable, and I've seen some people commenting on that. So maybe you can get rid of that. Maybe there are some apps that you just have to kill in the background, because it does prompt for that. But that's a little bit of a fluctuating thing, but I think it can be handled, since for the first days that I've used it, I didn't have that issue. But the overall battery life is still very good. I don't give out the great certificate until I get 6 hours in mixed use, but 5 hours is very good. So let's talk about the software. That is a gripe for a lot of people, and I definitely get why. Because a few things are just off. Because if we check the quick settings, we have a lot of them, but for some reason I don't see a do not disturb quick setting, which is something that annoys me a lot, because I use this option quite a lot, and therefore I actually already, as you can see, do, and then I can access it. But there is no quick way to access that, which is really odd. In terms of design, I still absolutely am okay. Of course, we have here the app launcher without an app tray, which is not a problem. Just use Pixel Launcher, Nova Launcher, whatever you want to, and then you will find the quick settings are customizable. But yeah, like I said, there are just a few missing. In terms of the rest, what do we have? We have some additions, like for example, you can switch out the buttons. If I find that option really quick, navigation keys, and here you can say you can change the order. We already talked about the point about the display. Of course, we have in the sound, we have Dolby Atmos. I personally did not like it so much. I did not find it to be all that useful, because you can make some adjustments here when you go in. Yep, okay, I have to turn it actually on, which I don't have. And then you can EQ, but I think the EQ is just a glorified equalizer on any other app that you can use. So yeah, not at all that great, but it is okay. And we have some more options. And I was actually told in one video that I have some kind of unique device, because I have some extra options, like for example here, assertive display and a glove mode and some things like that. I'm not quite sure what is different. Maybe that's due to the German version or so, but it is what it is. We also have double tap to wake the screen, free pinch, and a lot more. But as you can see, it's not really completely different compared to stock Android. The core base behavior is still absolutely there here with the quick settings and all that. I mean the recent apps and all that. But there are a few minor things, and I will get to that later in my conclusion. So software is good. I guess the updates will come later, and I don't want to stretch this video any further. I was okay with the software. I get that a lot of people won't like it so much, but there seems to be a customer community. You can get this. I didn't really check the customer since I can root this device, since it is a review unit. But that is what it is. So I would say let's get into the camera and check that. And I have to say here I'm actually super pleased with the selfies, because as you can see here, a lot of details, very sharp, and it did get everything right in my opinion, as you can see here as well. A lot of details. It doesn't really over sharpen all that much, and especially the exposure is really nicely done with harsher light. It works really nice, so I'm highly pleased, and this is definitely an absolute flagship selfie cam. And even indoors, as you can see here, still maintains to be quite sharp. Absolutely pleased. I really like the selfie cam. Here one picture with the flash, and here one without. And I think this is actually quite sharp, and if it does pictures like these, it actually shows you that it uses some kind of night mode. And I have to say I am quite pleased with those pictures, because yes, there is a little bit of grain, but it maintains actually be quite sharp, pick up a lot of light, so still totally fine. Not maybe the very best one, but actually quite up there. And I've expected a lot worse what I've heard beforehand on this device. So even low light is good. In terms of the pictures outside, I will get into one thing, because I think, like for example here, I think the picture quality is sometimes absolutely amazing with so much details, but I don't usually talk too much about the quality itself, because I think if a picture gets done right, it's nice, but the experience on this camera was a little bit shaky and flaky, because as you can see here, this happens a lot of times without tap to focus, and this with. And here again, sometimes the autofocus didn't know at all it should do. Now, of course, it did overexpose a little bit, but at least it's sharp and it's super detailed. And I really like the outcome, the picture quality, the capabilities of this cam are absolutely great. And especially if you do things like this, I love the exposure, because nothing is overshadowed or just not right. It looks great, especially here. I've seen this so much weaker on so many cams already, and I definitely know to appreciate it. And especially if you do a lot of landscape shots, it gets this done. But the macros sometimes, due to the little bit weird working autofocus here once again, and then yeah, that's one thing. For macros, if you do a lot of flowers and something like that, the camera has a little bit of trouble. But I think especially the exposure and the colors and the general sharpness, as you can see here, works so nice. And I think definitely it is a flagship worthy camera. I've heard a lot of people that don't think the same, but I can't say anything else. So let's see that. And one thing about the video, this is 4K, where we will see quite some artifacts during faster scrolling. So yeah, as you can see here, the exposure here on the video isn't all that smooth, but it works out absolutely fine in my opinion. But it's the artifacting going on 4K, especially on faster movements, that I didn't find to be so great. But what works out very smooth and quite snappy is the actual autofocus. The other thing though is, and I will switch to the 4K, to the 1080p video later, just so you can see one thing. because I can tell you here this looks fine. So let's switch to the 1080p video, and here it looks noticeably more blurry, and the autofocus is a lot more jumpy, as you can see here. It works a little bit more reliable, it gets the sharpness a little bit proper, the autofocus, but especially as you can see here, there's a lot more pumping going on. As you can see, it's also not as responsive. Therefore, though, a lot less artifacting going on. So the 4K camera isn't the very best one, since it has the artifacting going on, but the autofocus works a little bit nicer. Therefore, the 1080p 60 frames has the better working autofocus, but also more pumping, which is something I don't like so much. So I'm not super happy with either of the video cams. For pictures, I absolutely like it. If you have to sometimes just tap, and the video, yeah, you have to get to that. Now let's talk about the pros and cons to get through this. And there is, after all, quite many cons, but mostly actually software related. So let's get quickly through the pros. Premium build, absolutely. I would say this is the best feeling phablet that I've ever held in my hand in terms of compact feel, premium feel. Absolutely love it. Sleek design. I think it looks gorgeous. Top-notch display. It is, I would say, top 3 easy, and I would actually put it on par with the Samsung Galaxy S7 display. We have display settings, as I said. I definitely appreciate that, because they are a little bit more granular that you get it after all on a Samsung device. Awesome speakers, loud and clear with a great rich sound. Very good headphone jack. Very good, not great. And flagship performance, absolutely. It is absolutely on a level with an S7, actually better, because the S7 sometimes has this odd little way too sensitive scrolling, and it is, I would say, on par with an G5 that I said, because it's super smooth, just not quite fast. But I've talked about that in terms of animations. Very good battery life, very good, and camera quality. Now let's get to the negative sides, which maybe could be a deal breaker for you or not. Can be slippery. It's an aluminum phone after all. So in most cases for me it was absolutely fine, but sometimes since it is a little bit bigger, it's a little bit harder to hold on, but keep that in mind. Weird data Wi-Fi behavior, because the weird thing is, if I have it on Wi-Fi, a lot of times the 4G icon pops up for me, but just for a split second. I'm not quite sure what that even means, because actually when I was on mobile data at work, I did not once, not a single time, get 4G. Always on 3G. I didn't really notice it to be slower, but I didn't get 4G for some reason, which I get at home, but only sporadically on Wi-Fi, which makes no sense. So this is a little bit wonky. The actual connectivity and that was fine. I didn't really notice anything here. Minor standby issues, I talked about that. Animations are longer than usual, even you set it smaller to 5.5. Notification bell, that is something that I want to show off, because if you turn on the screen and have a notification, there is a bell here that you don't see since I don't have a notification. And if you hit that, you see your lock screen notifications, which is odd, because if you just turn it on, you don't see the notification itself. You have to press that notification bell. A lot of people are annoyed by that fact, but I don't know why that is the case. I heard that is a kind of a workaround if you use Next Lock or something like that from Microsoft, the lock screen that replaced it. That one is a kind of working around, but it's not a great solution, and I don't get why this, since I've never seen this on any other phone. No, do not deter quick setting if I haven't missed that, and the inconsistent camera XP. But now let's get to my verdict. I still have to say, despite the few flaws, it is my most favorite phablet. I would go as far as calling it the best phone, after all, if it wouldn't be a phablet, because I, after all, prefer smaller phones, and if they would make this phone as a 5.2 inch or 5 inch, I would have said it's the best phone. But if you are into phablets, I think this is pretty much the best option right now, especially in terms of value, since you can get for around 400, which is the same as, for example, the Moto Z, which has a lot lesser specs, not the highest resolution display, not the same SoC, but therefore the battery life after all. But I will get into that review. But I think everything else is done. You get a nice premium, not maybe flawless package. So for a lot of people, it could be down setting or upsetting that this software experience maybe isn't all that great. But in my normal use, I think I would be able to get past that point. And after all, I think I would just root it and use custom ROMs after all. So if that's something that is an option for you, then you should be fully pleased. If you are someone who sticks with the stock software, you at least now know what you have to live with and if that's worth it for you. So about the one thing where I said in my first impressions video, even if the camera is utter BS, I would still call out this to be the best phone. and the camera didn't disappoint me. It was a little bit of an unwonky experience, but not enough to really break the overall great, amazing experience, because the device feels amazing, looks and sounds amazing, performs absolutely great, the battery life is more than satisfying. So I guess I covered it all long enough, more than long enough, but I hope I was able to give you all the information for you to properly now judge this phone. Like I said, it's not flawless, but for the price of 400, you don't really make all that much compromise, because I expected actually to have to make more. I did not, and I love this device. Absolutely. So that's it. If you have any questions, leave them down below. If you liked it, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel, and you know the rest. And do not forget, have a nice day. And one thing that I actually forgot in the intro, do not forget that this device was kindly enough provided for me from Cyberport. So maybe check out their links. I just forgot that in the intro, but thanks again. Nice day. Bye.